Oh snap, the December season has just officially been announced. It's the Hellfire Gala. And we don't have as many cards as we previously thought we were gonna have, but we do have what I think is actually gonna end up being some pretty powerful cards. We're gonna get into the star ratings and how I think these cards are going to perform when they release in a short while, but I also wanted to talk about what you can get in the season pass. So you got all these awesome variants. You got the White Queen variant, and the Professor X looks amazing. The card backs are especially fire. I love the Hellfire Gala ticket, I guess you could say it is. And there's an infinite version with the gold back. Ooh, it looks good. But then the other thing that they announced is that there's going to be some kind of like, I don't know, like cosmetic editor in the shop or in your collection or something like that. I don't know what it's even going to look like, but there's going to be a lot of emojis coming, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. We have no idea how it's going to be priced, so only time will tell with all that stuff. We also didn't get any confirmation on series drops, but keep in mind, hold it a little patience for all that good stuff because there's going to be a patch this Tuesday, right? So they're just announcing the cards for the new season right now with a few little teasers. We're going to get a lot more information next week, okay? So stay tuned. But here we go with this season's cards, starting off with the season pass card, Sebastian Shaw. All right, so Sebastian Shaw. I've already touched on this card, so I'm not going to go into it a whole bunch, but I do think it's going to be very good. He is now a 3/4, was previously a 3/3 in the older data mines. When this card permanently gains power, gain +2 more power wherever this is. I'm going to let you know right now, if you don't already know about the Snapper Pass series that I do for every new card, you should definitely snap subscribe because I'm going to show you guys every single card in that video that Sebastian Shaw can actually activate his ability with, right? The core synergies. Permanent power is referring to those cards like Ironheart, actually giving power, not an aura effect that's on the board that is just temporary if he's on the board. No, it has to permanently attach to him, then he gets his buff. Okay, so Ironheart's a quick example. You can even look at Nico Minoru's. Some of her spells can do it. Shuri, doubling in power. All those kinds of cards. I will have a full list in the Snapper Pass. But there's actually not a lot. I found 12 cards, 6 locations that can buff Sebastian Shaw. That's where I was like, okay, maybe this isn't quite a 5-star card because the deck building application is a bit tight. You have cards like Okoye, which is great. Hit the deck. He can get the buff in the deck. That's fantastic. He gets that 1 power from Okoye. He's going to get 3 because his ability will activate +2. He's going to then be, when you draw him, a 3/7. That's amazing. That's great value. We look for that. And if you can buff him another time, amazing. Through the roof, such fast scaling. You also got like Forge giving +2. Then he gets another +2 from his ability. That's 4 power for 4 energy. And you end up with a net 9. 1 from Forge, 8 from Shaw. And then Surfer is an amazing combination, right? Probably the best deck that you can have Shaw with because you're going to get the +2 from Surfer, +2 from Shaw's ability on that final turn, which is when you probably want to play Surfer. So there is quite a bit of potential here with Shaw. It's a season pass card. I'm not sleeping on these anymore. They seem to be good every single time, and a lot of people pick it up. And there's not a lot of counters. You're looking at like Shang-Chi and Shadow King. I would say those are the 2 main counters for Sebastian Shaw. Anyways, I'm giving him a 4-star rating because I think he has a narrow deck building application, but a lot of power, high scaling, seems like a very strong option. Let's get to the next one. Next up is Blob. I'm giving Blob 3 stars. A 6/4 on reveal. Merge your deck into this and gain its total power. Ongoing can't be moved. I'm not too worried about the ongoing ability. I don't know if that's really going to have a big play. I think it's more for thematic purposes. Sure, there's like things like arrow and such, but I don't think we're worried about it too much. What we're really looking to do is get a lot of power on your big boy Blob here. But the thing I'm concerned about is the consistency, right? If you don't draw those cards, or rather leave those cards in your deck that you want, like the Infinite, 20 power, or whatever else, right? Then it might be a little bit difficult to make Blob work. They increased his power from 4 from 3. A lot of people are saying that's probably because of Mr. Negative, not necessarily a buff to the card because the power doesn't necessarily matter, but to avoid negative shenanigans, what I think is actually a very good point. I completely agree with that. Maybe this works in Hella as well because it's like a backup plan. You eat up all the other cards that you never were able to draw. It's usually high power stuff. But the reason I'm giving him 3 stars, and I know this is probably my most controversial take in this video because a lot of people are hyped for him, is it's just the consistency issues that I see here, right? If we were to compare this right? To like Shuri Red Skull, a very prominent deck in the meta, a very strong deck that has been performing well for the last like 4-6 months. I feel like that's a lot better because you play that on curve. It happens naturally. Whereas your Blob, you're probably trying to ramp it out early. That's how I envision this, right? You do some kind of wave or electro, and then you can play Blob on 5, and then you Taskmaster on 6. Hopefully you've set up armor somewhere, and you're kind of doing the same thing that Shuri Red Skull was doing anyways. That deck is getting to 28 power. You've probably won the location on that play. If Blob gets to 30 power compared to 28, do we really care? And the setup is a little bit more difficult with Blob. Now, it could just be a late game bomb, and that's just how it works in a lockdown deck, right? You lock down a lane and then you just drop the Blob, and boom, you're probably going to hit pretty good power totals. But I don't know. I just don't love it. There's a bit of an inconsistency here that I feel like it's going to be more of a fun card to play with rather than a very strong option to add into your deck. You could also use like America Chavez and stuff like this to make it so that there's better odds that you hopefully draw Blob early and then leave the other higher power stuff in your deck. Funny enough, the strongest thing with Blob is a deck tracker, which isn't actually in the game. So if you play on mobile a lot, you might be at a huge disadvantage when playing with Blob compared to, I don't know, your opponent on PC using a deck tracker. It's actually a bit of a big deal, unless you're tracking the cards and you got tabs on that. You got to be aware, right? Of course, we're trying to do that anyways. So yeah, that's what I think about Blob, but let's get to the next one. It's time to talk about Havok. Dude, this is the biggest change, and I'm pretty excited about it because originally this card was garbage, and now I feel like I cannot sleep on this card. A 2/0, previously a 2/1, but now has the ability after each turn you lose 1 max energy, and this gains +4 power. We have never in the history of Marvel Snap seen scaling with +4 power on a card. Okay, that is insane. All the cards that had +3 scaling have I think most of them, or if not all, have been nerfed to +2. We're looking at like Elsa Bloodstone, Silver Surfer even used to do it. So that makes me think, okay, there's something here. This has to be good somehow. And we're going to explain how the crazy power totals that Havok can get to. But I also have to clarify what lose 1 max energy means. Because when I talked about this in the data mines, a lot of people tried to tell me that I had it backwards. That is not the case. This is how it works, okay? So on turn 2, if you play Havok, on turn 3, you will have 2 energy. Okay, a lot of people probably assume that. But you might be thinking on turn 4, you'll have 3 energy, which is essentially 1 less per turn. That is not how this card works. It's much worse. Essentially, that +1 energy that you're getting every turn, scrap it. You're not getting it anymore with Havok on the board. He's taking away 1 max energy per turn. So turn 2, you play Havok. Turn 3, you're going to have 2 energy to spend. Turn 4, you're going to have 2 energy to spend. Turn 5, you're going to have 2 energy to spend. And turn 6, turn 7, if it even gets to that point, you're only going to have 2 energy to use on those respective turns. That is how Havok works. That is one of the worst handicaps I've seen in Marvel Snap on a card, right? To compensate for its crazy power potential. So is this garbage? I don't think so, man. Okay, one of the nastiest combinations is Viper. You send this over with Viper, all of a sudden your opponent, unless they're able to destroy Havok, they're just not going to gain energy anymore. You can do that by turn 3. Maybe a few locations makes it easy, but essentially you play Havok on turn 2, you Viper it over on turn 3. Your opponent is then locked at 3 energy for turn 4, 5, and 6. That is so toxic. That is so brutal. That's going to piss a lot of people off, okay? But they do get a very high power scaling card on their side of the board. So you could almost say, well, not that they're going to win that location. Maybe they can find a win otherwise, but they can't. If they have a 5-cost card or a 6-cost card or a 4-cost card in that scenario, in their deck, in their hand, or whatever, and there's nothing that can help them out to get to higher energy totals, it's almost like playing Yondu and destroying all of those, because they're not playable anymore. Actually, even worse, you still have the potential to draw them, but they're dead draws because you cannot play those cards. It's kind of crazy to think about. I feel like that's going to be a very frustrating combination. But in other applications, we could also use Havok on our side of the board just to get crazy power. Because let's just talk about the power scaling now. if we were to play Havok on turn 2, he's going to have 4 by the end of turn 2. That is a premium stat line already, 2-4. And then 8 on 3, 12 on 4. I got to do my quick math here. 16 on 5, and 20 power on turn 6 at the end of turn 6. That is a 2 for 20 power card. Insane. If you can manage and find a way to win, maybe you play Goose or something to make sure that you can control another location and get a lot of scaling, maybe like Angela and Kitty Pryde, you could get to some really crazy power totals. Biggest problem I see is that there's still counters available. So let's say you Viper it over, but you have Shang-Chi in your hand. Or maybe not even Shang-Chi, you got Shadow King. You could still get this card back to 0 power or destroyed. So I feel like you have to set up with armor. You got to have armor as well to protect Havok. And then we could do some really crazy things. Or maybe even Cosmo is an even better combination, right? Turn 2 Havok. Oh, maybe not even turn 2. You'd have to turn 3 Havok and then turn 4 with 3 energy, play Cosmo to protect it. That's where it gets a bit dicey, right? I think the Viper combination ends up being one of the best ones and then just looking to destroy it at the end of the game. But my goodness. This is a very fascinating card all of a sudden. The power scaling is, you can't underestimate it. I wanted to give it more stars, but because I gave it 1 of the data mines based on its ability, I felt like I had to go in the middle with 3. But let me tell you, I just want to clarify that I could see this being a 4 or higher star card because there's going to be some Havok decks that are going to be a lot of fun. And I'm all of a sudden very excited about this card. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. You could also Mr. Negative it because it's got 0 power. You could use Ravonna to cheat it out, make it cheaper. Maybe there's like a Ravonna deck that, oh my God, it could be a lot of fun. I'm actually pretty excited. It's so wild. But anyways, we got one more card to talk about. Let's get to it. All right, and the last card that's going to be released in December is Selene. And I'm giving Selene 4 stars. I think this is actually the sleeper card of this month. And I do really like junk decks, so I'm a little bit biased. I'm pretty excited about this card. So she's a 1, -1, which is great. -1, we can actually make that work with a Nihilus, right? Send her back over or getting her destroyed so it doesn't affect our side of the board. But also her ability is on reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. Not only are we going to disrupt our opponent's hand, but we can make that work in our hand with the goblins, right? Or maybe not even the goblins, maybe just like anything that's low power that we want to send over with a Nihilus. But if we use the goblins as a great example, it becomes a 3, -6 for the green goblin. With the hobgoblin, it's -11 power on a 5 cost card. That's crazy. Send that over, GG. So I really like the potential here with Selene. She works beautifully in the junk decks. They're kind of lacking early game cards. You're looking at like the Hood right now, and then I would say Nebula is another top tier junk card because you lock up that location, Nebula gets a bunch of power. But I'd much rather Selene over Nebula, to be honest, in that list. So I'm very excited. I'm gonna pick this one up. I think she's a sleeper. That's a 6 power swing on a 1-drop, right? Especially if we can make that work with our hand. And if we don't like that negative power, then we play Luke Cage. Now, the main reason this is not a 5-star card, because I really think the potential is there. Luke Cage exists, and he basically nullifies her entire effect because we want to send the -3 on the goblin over. That would get reduced. And then if we do hit a card in their hand, well, then it goes away because Luke Cage just says, no, we're not dealing with any drops in power. So that counter is very popular, and it completely devastates this 1-drop. But she's a 1-drop, so it's not too bad anyways. So very excited about Selene. I think she's going to be the sleeper card of the month. I don't know about necessarily the most powerful card, but she's going to be, really easy to fit in the junk archetype and find a home immediately and perform well. That's how I perceive this card. So there you go. That is the cards being released in December, but we also have 2 new locations that are going to be coming out, and I want to show you guys the Spotlight Cash schedule so you can kind of, navigate and plan out your month. All right, so these are the 2 new locations that are going to be showing up in December. I don't really care for either of them, to be honest. Castle Blackstone, the player winning here gets +1 energy each turn. That's cool, I guess, but I feel like that's going to be kind of toxic. Like if somebody ramps up to crazy energy totals just because it flipped and they already had a card there or anything like that, they're just going to snowball and win the game. So I don't know if I love that much. I like the idea of racing and trying to win a location for an advantage, but that's a really big advantage. So got me a little bit concerned there. Time will tell. And then the White Palace is essentially White Queen's ability on a location. Copy the highest cost card in your opponent's hand. It's also like the Daily Bugle, except Daily Bugle is random, whereas this is the highest cost card. I don't really care. That's cool, I guess. That's fine. That's information. It's very powerful information as well. I'm sure it'll influence some games, but it's a bit of a boring location to me because we've already seen it on the card. So it's whatever. But let's get to the Spotlight Cash schedule. Hey, and there we go. Updated with the appropriate Havok. So that's the schedule right there as far as we know. Now this could change with the patch that's coming up. I feel like they're going to talk about the economy in some fashion. These are all Series 5 releases in December. January seems to be all Series 5. So I feel like they're brewing something up. So if there is a change, I'll let you guys know, and I'll post a change to the Spotlight Cash schedule. But this is what we know so far. So you can use this to, kind of pick and choose which card you want to save up for, because these are all very expensive cards. And while I did give them all good ratings, at the same time, they're all kind of passable in their own way, depending on what you like to play. Like Selene is great, but she's for junk decks pretty much exclusively. So if you don't like that type of deck, then she's easy pass. Havok seems like an absolute wild card. That's the card that's got me the most shook. Let me know what you think about the new Havok in the comments below, because I'm starting to see some crazy potential with this card. And then Blob's got me a bit underwhelmed, and Sebastian Shaw's a good season pass card. So anyways, that's the December announcement. That's the December cards. Let me know what you think. Are you excited about this new season? We don't get Firestar, but she might return another day. Who knows? We'll see her eventually. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoy this new season of Marvel Snap, and stay tuned because the next video is going to be the Sebastian Shaw Snapper Pass, which I got a lot of amazing details and graphics for you guys. And then after that, it's data mine time with the new patch. Let's go. All right. Thank you for watching. Catch you guys next time.